Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Misfit Podcast. We're going to be talking about cycle 3 of the, I don't know, what do you call it, 2019 season now?
Yeah.
Sure.
Everything's all confusing about when the season starts and stops in my brain.
Perpetual season.
It is now a permanent season.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So before we get into the do's and don'ts and fun stuff and not so fun stuff in cycle 3, Drew and probably Hunter will say some things.
Definitely Hunter.
So sharpentheaxecode.com, that's where you find your gear, all that good stuff. You guys kind of kicked our ass on Black Friday, but by the time this podcast comes out, we will be closing in on kind of that Christmas time release. It's going to be on December 14th. We got some really good stuff coming out for you guys then. So keep your eye out for that. There's obviously still, you know, your regular gear that's going to be going on between now and then. We have some remote coaching openings for extending into the 2019 season. That still lives at misfitathletics.com. You can find the application on there. You can read about pricing. You can read about what that is going to entail. But the affiliate programming no longer lives at misfitathletics.com. It has its own website, social media, content, all that good stuff.
Yep. So, yeah, just this past Monday launched teammisfit.com officially. It's where you can get all of your affiliate programming. We've also built a pretty robust site with things ranging from coaching tools, movement templates for things like push-ups, pull-ups for kind of your typical affiliate class style members, beginner and advanced versions of that. Like I said, coaches' tools to help coaches plan classes, to help coaches evaluate each other as far as how they're performing as a coach, and just your typical blog posts and articles. The site is built for the coach, for the gym coach and owner, to improve the product that they're providing their members. All of that content is completely free. You just have to sign up, create an account, no credit card required. And then our affiliate programming itself has 2 tiers now. You've got GPP and competitor versions of the programming. There are free sample weeks that you can go and download on teammisfit.com. If you want to kind of get a side-by-side comparison, they are 2 separate programs. And Matt, Dex, and I will be doing a podcast coming up in the next week or 2 specifically for teammisfit.com. So I don't want to kill our Cycle 3 podcast, but we're pretty excited about it. There's a link to it on Misfit Athletics where you would find affiliate programming previously. Just log onto that page and we redirect you to teammisfit.com.
And the Instagram handle is at Team Misfit Gyms.
Team Misfit Gyms, yep.
I heard there's a template, so I think you touched on it. There's a template where somebody can assess how well a coach did in a class, right? And then score it.
Yep.
It's like it's like a 0 to 10 scale, right?
Yep. So
and hang on, because I want to make sure I got this right. And Sherb has used it on you in class before, right?
Yes.
And he did give you a 0 before, correct?
I
saw it.
I don't think I got a 0.
I saw a 0.
I got a 1.
You did not end class on time.
I did not end class.
He still gets a 1 for that technically.
What?
I mean,
He didn't.
it should be it should be
0 or 10.
Yeah, it's throwing him a bone. Here's a 1.
2-hour Fran.
That's solid.
Yeah.
I just wanted to pick on you for a second.
Yep,
that was fun.
fair.
That was fun.
It's good though. I mean, he's used it on me twice. We've used it. Yeah.
Contact is important in this conversation.
Whatever.
Cut that as the clip for this podcast.
You used it on me twice.
Yeah. But no, we've revised it a handful of times, and I think it's good. I think it covers all the wickets, and like you're always going to have something. You're going to have something to improve on. So, but
I think it's important before we jump into cycle 3 just to mention that everything on that site now is month to month. That's a request that we've had for a while.
Huge request.
Gyms want to know what they're getting before they're paying thousands of dollars. Now you will be paying a subscription base month to month, and we tried to make those prices very enticing so that we can create the kind of community we want, so we can figure out what the best practices are for gyms all over the world. So that's something that's been requested for a long time, and
we'd also love any feedback you have about it. So if you check it out, have some things you can throw our way through social media, you send it to us to Instagram or Facebook or email either one of us.
Hunter's cell phone number is 20.
Yeah.
But yeah, send us some feedback. We'd like to know what you guys think so we can work on continuing to improve it.
And Hunter has like 200 followers right now, so if you guys could throw him a follow, that'd just be cool, you know? Stop it.
I personally don't.
It's Hunter Wood CF.
I think I have less than 200 followers.
Yeah. I wish I had that
plenty.
many. I wouldn't have to answer any
So
questions.
great.
No DM.
Plenty.
Be awesome. Okay.
Moving on.
We
Cycle
good?
3?
We
Yeah.
good?
Is
We
it
good?
time?
All right. Cycle 3.
Oh no!
What?
We just
Oh.
talked about this right before it started.
It's not important.
Okay.
Never mind.
Everybody wanted to kill us last year because we had an open prep camp set. It fell through, and then we jumped on a plane to Iceland.
It was fun, though.
Sorry.
It was fun. This year,
We had a good time.
this year, open prep camp will be in February, right here, Misfit HQ, Portland, Maine. The best camps that we put on, according to ourselves and the people that have come to the camps,
According to us.
according to us, are here at Misfit HQ, and we're going to start doing more of those. Open prep will be here tentatively February 16th and 17th. We're going to get that information out as soon as possible. But last year, people were like, you should have given us some kind of hint. So here's your hint. It's gonna happen almost definitely on those dates. We will post on social
It's
media
gonna make a
as
great-
soon as possible.
Christmas gift. Just throwing that out there.
Will you buy me one?
Oh,
Maybe. I
Okay.
don't know.
All right.
I'm in that nice, so think about it.
CrossFit,
Moving on.
functional fitness.
Ah.
Let's go.
I
Next
liked
bit.
all the other topics better than this topic. All right. I guess I should tell everybody what we've been cooking up for Cycle 3. I guess. I wanted to keep it a secret, but they insisted that we do a podcast, so here we are. Okay. A lot of similar ideas to last year, and anyone that's followed for the last couple years, I think you've seen I hope you've noticed the progression of taking things kind of in their own modality and then start to blend them in with other things. Specifically with lifts, we start to make time components a bigger factor because that's what we worry about when we test in the open or if they're tested in competition. And even if we're talking about hitting a heavy lift, 1 rep, 3 rep in a competition, something like that, there is still typically a time component that goes with it. So making sure that you're training some of that stuff's really important, and we're going to bring that out in the Olympic lifting once again this season. We have, to give you guys an example, you'll be hitting power cleans like week 1 is similar to last year, 5 rounds, 60 seconds on, 2 minutes off. So you'd hit as many reps at a certain percentage as you could, drop and reset of power cleans. This year, though, however, because I paid attention last year I tried to be a little on the safe side with the percentages, and what ended up happening was people were just chasing bars, bouncing all around the gym. So you weren't actually able to do a lot of strength work. It ended up being kind of a pain in the ass for the earlier weeks because the percentages were low. So I've upped the percentages this year so that it is more of a true, I think it's a mix between strength work and strength endurance, which kind of adds an interesting element when you have something like 5 rounds of max effort for a minute of lifting something that's heavy or moderately heavy over and over again. I think it's not only a good training piece, but also a good test and should give you a lot of information about where you're at with that sort of stuff. And then, of course, the clean and snatch Misfit complexes are back. Those will be against the clock. Those are very similar to last year. And we also have the percentage work that we had last year with the rest being a monostructural movement. So your rest is more of a flush than a sit on a bench and check your Instagram between sets. It's really going to force you guys to keep moving. Not that I need your heart rate to be through the roof by any means, but I need your body to continuously move until you hit your next set. And we're trying to see kind of how that plays into where you're at with your lifts as we progress through the season. So the two things that I really want you to have, and we've been stressing it for a while, but I think that it's time people start to really bite the bullet. The bike erg. People are just still slightly unwilling to spend the $1,000. I mean, it's one of the best tools we have in our gym. We only have a couple of them, but they're constantly in use.
How else are you going to build slow twitch and learn to flush in your lower half?
We
What's
tried.
the alternative?
I mean, we tried making that work with assault bikes forever, and we're kind of throwing it out the window.
Try hard enough. Heart rate's way too
Exactly.
high. Yeah.
Well, you've had us try that too. I mean, you had me try that like 40-minute fasted cardio stuff, and I passed it along to some of the athletes I work with, and I found that all those guys are like, wow, these longer metcons are so much easier now because I actually can like work out and still like recover as I'm working out versus like having to go really hard and stop, stand around, not effective, and now you're able to stay moving more, which is for a lot of us our biggest hole in our game is that longer workout. And
I mean, like any workout that is 15 minutes or greater has an element of endurance to it. It is endurance based, and we're not talking about 2, 4, 8 hours worth of endurance, but we're talking about endurance based. And to be able to take something like a bike erg after you squat clean and hit it for 90 RPMs for 2 to 3 to 4 minutes teaches you to cycle things faster, teaches you to be able to move your body steadily faster for a longer period of time. And even though we're focusing on strength work primarily, we're mixing the two in and making sure that your body can kind of, I don't know if switching energy pathways is the right way to look at it, but more combine them so that they're on call easier.
A
and
bigger
more
contribution from the ones that are underdeveloped.
I mean, to relate it to like an open workout, it's getting to the point where there are a lot of movements for athletes at the level that we're programming for that they can actively rest during a set of 30 wall balls. Like, you know, like you are actually recovering during those, something like that.
Things
for
like
example.
double unders,
like you're actually
even
the
row,
game is
even the
recovering.
row from
Yeah.
last year.
Sitting on the rower.
What happens when those other two movements get your heart rate up?
Right.
And then you go to the rower, and that's also a weakness. It completely changes the landscape of the workout. Whereas you go sit on that thing, and it's just kind of eh.
You watch all those athletes who are able to hold 1,300 calories per hour warming up, no problem. They could probably do it for 20 minutes. You get your heart rate up a little bit, you're a little tired, you're 10 minutes in. Those athletes
900.
are now 900, 1,000 barely. So
Yeah,
there's a lot to be said about developing that pathway.
And there's definitely last thing I'll say is like there's definitely a challenge going from like a slower twitch like biker to then being forced to like do something that's like a high power output, like a power clean or power snatch. Like if you've ever done like a mile run and then been expected to lift something heavy, you know that transition from like a slower twitch to a fast twitch is pretty fucking terrible. Like it's hard.
And I picked the other movement that I picked to pair with lifting is running this cycle because I actually think that, well, for one obvious reason, the bike erg and the run are the fastest cadence you're going to have of any machine. So that's one thing I want. And the other is when you get off pulling a rower or pulling on a ski erg, it actually does, I think, diminish your power output, whereas I think the other two can actually help recharge it. Just a theory, but it's because of the RPMs.
I think there's a grip component to that too that people like often underemphasize. Like you go and do that skier, you're holding on those handles. You're not squeezing it with 100% intensity, but there's some level of grip there. And we all know how like grip plays a factor in being able to repeat a movement over and over again, like chest to bar pull-ups or barbell movements. When you don't have that same confidence in your grip, you're less confident moving the barbell, which I think has not only a physical component, but a psychological component. Like, hey, my grip's a little tired. I don't know if I can do this.
And you look at CrossFitters too, like you would tell them, let's say we chose a rower, which we didn't, and you tell them, okay, row like slow and smooth. They're still going to put it on a fucking 7 damper and pull a bunch of deadlifts and be expected to go squat clean. It's like, what are you doing? Like that's completely counterintuitive to what we're trying to cycle here and figure out. So anyway, that was a long explanation for something that's relatively simple to execute, but now you know why. That's the nuts and bolts of the Olympic lifting in cycle 3. Strength work, we're back to 5x5, and I'm just going to kick it over to Drew with a back squat to talk about probably his favorite cycle of the year.
Yeah, we're back to Texas method, and the reason why I like this so much is because it works for everyone. This works for everybody. I would like to take credit for it. I cannot. We all sort of wrote over the years the first cycle 1 and cycle 2 squat templates together, but there's a psychological component. Like you go from 5 to 3 to 1. There's that psychological component of this is close to my 1 rep max. Can I do this? Like you get in your head, am I having the kind of day where I can have that power output? Whereas the 5x5 is like that day where you're like, I got to put my boots on and, lace them up and get to work. Like everybody knows that you're going into that with, it's a doable amount, but it also kicks your ass. And that sweet spot of bringing those two things together just makes it possible for somebody to add 5 pounds every single week to their 5 rep max. And you go over the course of a cycle, you don't have to get greedy at all. There's no reason to get greedy. In other squat programs, you might think to yourself, I'm going to add 10, 15, 20, whatever pounds. I feel good today. But in this one, I get to retest this week after week after week.
Right.
Try that in this.
You get to add, but you like that's quick math. That's easy. That's something anybody can get behind. I get to add 30, 25, 30 pounds to my 5 rep max. Yeah. Okay, I'm in. Let's do this.
In 5 weeks.
Fastest turnaround you ever see it in.
and
people do it all the time though.
Yeah.
With like when their final retest happens and all of a sudden they jump like 10 or 15 pounds from their last one because it's retest. It's like,
yeah, it's awesome. It works really well. And it just seems to be that sweet spot of it's doable enough, but also challenging enough because, a lot of programs are that 3x5 and there's a big difference between 3x5 and 5x5. So, it's a great squat program. transfers over into being able to really have stability in cycle 4. You're moving through whatever it is, 150 thrusters or something.
Yeah.
You
I want to
have
add
you have
one
that
thing
base.
about that too, is if you're the person who's just like, that first set felt like shit, and it takes until set 3 to like start to feel smooth, and then you're hurting on reps 4 and 5 of your last 2 sets, you didn't warm up well enough. Like from start to finish, that could take you, for like a bigger athlete, someone who's moving a little bit more weight, like in the 45-minute range of time to like complete the 5x5. Maybe a little bit less, but
Yeah, that's a long time.
Well, I mean, just
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying
no.
it's
I mean,
a big
just,
commitment for your
my
day.
my point is just dedicating enough time to it and warming up properly, like getting a good warm up, making sure that first set feels good. You're not using
for sure
the first set as your warm up. Like, oh, that felt like shit. Hopefully, these next 4 like smooth out.
Yeah, and if you think about what the actual output is, it's astronomical. You take whatever, you're squatting, let's say it's 300 pounds and you're used to squatting 95 or body weight in a Metcon. Now multiply that out by however many extra pounds and 25 reps, and you understand like, whoa, I'm doing a lot of work over the course of that 5x5, because it's, you know, point A to point B with 5 times 5 times 300. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's the squat program again. I think everyone knew it was coming that's followed before, and they can expect it, and you'll see it again. Just a quick note, Hatchet will continue the longer linear progression. I think we're down to 4s now.
Yep.
4x4 and 5x4. I have to double check, but we're down to 4s anyway, sets of 4. Same rules apply as the last 2 cycles. It's in there, you'll see it. And then the pulling component for strength, deadlifting. I'm prescribing that at the end of your training day, because these are going to be bigger sets, and they're going to be like the traditional deadlift style. We're not prescribing sumo this time, and I want them to be done in a sense where it's purely strength endurance work. So one of the things that we see happens is when people are a little more tired and beat up, especially on the deadlift, you might see 3 or 4 good reps out of a set of 10, and then you start to see the breakdown over and over again. Then you start to see the punching the bar into the ground. Then you start to see, and then you start to see just complete garbage. And that's one thing that I want people to build away from. And so doing 3 sets of 10 to start, and then moving to 3 sets of 12 at the last piece of your training day will, I think, force you to load you'll be warmed up, but you'll be forced to load slightly less than you would if you just went at your deadlift first thing. And it will reinforce what I hope is better movement for the deadlifts with the sets, and making the last set the one that really counts, and just kind of building, like I said, that strength endurance component of the deadlift, trying to make sure that the first rep looks like the last rep. And we're going to build all the way to 1 set of 20 in week 5. So it's
this was, I would say, as a remote coach, one of like the biggest, like, put a gold star on it from last year. This made some serious changes for people last year with the deadlift. I know that we did it in our affiliate, and that made some really big changes for people. And it's, you know, there's a lot of people in the CrossFit community that just don't jive well with that high rep, moderate weight deadlift in a Metcon. And this really made some serious changes last year. And I think what happens is you obviously get stronger, you obviously get more confident, but there's something to that motor recruitment pattern of you drive through the floor and that first pull to get your knees out of the way, but then they don't come back out in front anymore. You start to develop that posterior chain a little bit more through these reps, and that feeling of, I'm just going to push my hip through and keep my knee locked out, and I'm going to be good to go, instead of the you know, the person's fucking
I think that
trying
the
with their
the
knees.
body awareness thing is huge. That's the biggest change for
This
me.
gives you an opportunity, because once again, it's, you know, I'm just repeating myself from the 5x5, but it just gives you an opportunity to find that sweet spot between doable and it can make a change.
It's only a couple or a few sets each week, but it's actually a sneaky amount of volume and a sneaky amount of time under tension for what it is, compared to when we're doing 3 or 4 triples or a 5x5 deadlift or a handful of singles. Like, that time under tension so quick up and down, and people usually don't even brace to the ground anymore, even though we try to encourage that a little bit. So you're really not getting that time under tension to build the midline, to be able to keep the shoulders pulled back in those good positions, keep your lats, and get like people just throw that out the window when they're doing singles, doubles, and triples. And this, you have to stay in a nice brace position or you're just going to fall apart. So,
are you prescribing like a silent sort of style, or are we kind of starting to blur the line where there's like a little bit of that
I think there's
balance?
room to blur the lines. I like the library deadlift rule as a rule of thumb, but I think here, if you're in that gray area where things are slightly bouncing maybe a little more, but you're not punching the bar, and like I think there's
The weight you want to
value.
use might not be doable at a certain point if
Right.
you went with the library deadlift.
Right.
Like that kind of thing. So.
So yeah, I think there's room to kind of blur the line on that aspect, as long as it's not making, like, you're not slamming the bar and then losing all the brace
Right.
ability and
Yep.
all that. That defeats the entire purpose. But as far as it being silent, like, focus on the things we talked about first, and then everything else is kind of secondary. Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot of strength stuff. Let's fly through the rest of it.
Push jerk? We talking about the push jerk?
It's the same thing. It's a percentage progression. The sets go down, I think. Actually, I think they turn into threes at one point.
Yeah, it goes it's 5-4-3, right?
Yeah. So the reps in each set go down as the percentage goes up. Hopefully, again, this is all reasonable percentage work, and it's to get your push jerk looking and feeling better. I guess that if you do that, it will make it stronger, because it's a push jerk's a very much a technique thing, as opposed to
No.
not a push press brute strength thing, or like just being a meathead being able to press a bunch of weight. You got to press yourself under the bar. So the percentages start very reasonable. Sets are very reasonable, and you might actually find the first couple weeks like, oh, I don't feel like I really did much. That was easy. Well, did
Make
you
it
work on
perfect.
it? Exactly.
Plenty of things to work on.
Did you make it perfect so that when it gets to 85%, you can just push under the bar smooth the same way? Most people don't. Take advantage.
Yeah, my biggest
that's the
rule
truth.
there is just if you can't stop in your catch, you're not doing it right.
Right.
Like, and you don't necessarily need to do that all the way up through your sets, but you should be doing it in your warm up. And if you get a little wobbly, you should be able to just stop and make sure, heel and toe are back on the ground and you're actually, locked out and not doing the like press out shit and all that. So
Bar's in the right spot.
Yeah. So as far as conditioning goes, I do have fairly detailed notes about how I wrote the cycle up. I don't want to give away all the secrets, though. I just want to kind of explain a couple things that you could see. So in the Metcons, in particular, this cycle, you will have a day where we feature chippers. And so I want people to think about completing a large task and then moving to the next large task and how they would break that up. Because we have things like gymnastics or box step overs or huge sets of thrusters where you do want to train, intensity, but you also need a plan. You need a strategy as to how you're going to approach that. If you took on 50 thrusters at 95 pounds in the middle of a chipper and you're like, I'm just going to hold on till I fail and then see what I have left, like, that just ruins your workout.
That's
So
good job. You did one set of 50 thrusters and
Yeah.
did nothing for the next
there's
whatever.
there's a way to train this and kind of push your ability and push your capacity while stopping just before you get to that red line point and learning kind of what that is and doing that from movement to movement and seeing how different movements affect the next one coming. There's a lot to learn from chippers, and there's a lot to plan and experience and everything. So those are in there. Okay.
I was going to say, the only thing I was thinking about with that particular piece is there
What
are
particular piece?
the chippers in
Oh.
particular. Are there certain athletes where the chipper, that mentality maybe is not the best? People like to play it safe. What would you say to someone who's like, they're normally playing workouts safe,
Yeah.
gaming them,
Yeah.
and this now gives them the opportunity to gain more? Isn't that now?
So they may lose intensity there, but the volume's still there for them to practice certain things. I find a lot of people play it safe in movements where they're not skilled in there. So like chest to bar or
bar muscle.
yeah, something that's usually more skill based than just like capacity based. They play it very safe, and that's not a bad thing. If your chest to bars aren't great and you have a set of 50 to dig through at some point, it really makes you figure out how you're going to do that, because that's nothing in these chippers is an unreasonable task that you wouldn't find in an open style chipper or something like that. There's nothing crazy going on here that you wouldn't have to dig your way out of. So if you're not having those experiences now of being slightly overwhelmed at some point, and yeah, you might have to sacrifice intensity in some points. Yes, you may need to scale. That might be appropriate before you start, but there's also value in finding yourself in a deficit and being like, how do I get out of this? Like,
well, that's
it all.
That's the knock that like other similar communities to ours have had against us is this like, that's just all they do, just beat their head against the wall.
Yeah.
Intensity, intensity, intensity. But what is the intensity for? Is the intensity for actually how hard you go? Is the intensity for
Your
how
focus.
focused you are during the piece? Is the intensity for how obsessed you are with, like, I know my split times and I know that I can do 7 chest to bar and then this and then this and then this. Intensity is just a way to say, pay attention to what you're doing at all times.
Correct.
Whether that's shut the shit off and go, which is sometimes, but not all the time. Like, this stuff is all super important. And we put a name to it just to say intensity is, you know, that focus piece. Like, get yourself in there and know what you have to do. So,
I don't know. Just a nice opportunity for athletes out there that, you know, sometimes they're too concerned with their score, can now pick some part of a workout, and that can go for any workout, but these workouts in particular, something that gives you trouble can now be your focus for that workout and how you approach that, and
Just
how
trying to learn.
those things play amongst each other can go forward into advancing your training versus just saying, all right, I'm going to split this up a bunch of times, like going with a plan.
And in certain days, not all the time, and actually not even often, but sometimes I like when athletes look at a piece and they're like, I'm never going to get through that. It's like, okay, well, this is the task. So how are you going to get through that? Like, are you you're not a competitor? Okay, then don't get through that. Go do a different piece.
get
like,
your feet off my stool, you freak. Get out of here.
you guys rubbing knees over there?
Yeah.
Seriously,
Ugh.
stop it.
Come on, bud. We're friends.
And so I like athletes having an occasional
Diddle stash.
serious mental
Comfortable.
test to have to dig themselves out of. All right, moving on. There's some short, heavy workouts built in. There's some open style. We are still building you guys towards the open, even though we have what people are calling all the sanctional events all around the world. Sanctionals.
Boy.
So yeah, the Metcons are still CrossFit-y, pretty classic. There's some specific focuses, which we just talked about in there. The intervals, again, we got rounds with rest. We have EMOM style workouts. But one of the things I really like about this part of the year is forcing you guys to do big touch and go or unbroken sets. So in one interval piece per week, there'll be prescribed numbers of reps and sets that you are supposed to do unbroken basically at all costs. And we've built in rest so that you can get to that red line point or get to that point of desperation where you're holding on for something and then hopefully reset and go again the next round. And what's nice is the easiest way to scale that, first and foremost, if you can complete the tasks that we're asking. If you need more rest to do it again, then take more rest. Just add rest between rounds as opposed to immediately thinking you have to back all the volume down or back it off. I think volume will become second to stepping the rest up, because I don't think I've asked for anything outrageous for those who want to compete at the elite level on the blog. It's pretty straightforward.
I think you set the tone pretty well in week 1. I'm just looking at that piece. You set the tone pretty good in that first
Is
one.
that the wall ball one?
Nah, squat clean thruster.
Oh, I can't.
I was just going through them.
I can't even see where I went. Oh,
It's a good way to set the tone with that style of workout.
yeah,
Like it.
but that's not outrageous.
No, it's just.
And I'm not going to
say.
say anything more about that.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it, but it's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, it'll be a good one, and it's fair.
200, 150.
Yeah,
Touch and go squat clean thrusters.
at 185.
Good luck.
Yeah, it's not.
PVC pipe.
Couldn't even hang out of that.
I like the mandatory unbroken. I've always thought of like cycle 3 as like kind of the muscle, like almost like a muscle endurance. Like
Did you
it's
think of
where
that? Because that's what we say every time. Boom.
yeah, I mean,
Wow.
well, we used to, but it's like
Insightful.
It's evolved a little bit more, and like, but now we're telling people it's like, hey, we're gonna have big sets in here, but now we're actually mandating like, yeah, hold on to the bar, like see what cycles 1 and 2 got you so far, and then hold on to that bar. And again, like, how valuable is it to know that you can do 8 squat clean thrusters at whatever weight?
Goes back to his article about
giving
like
away the workout.
I
now.
didn't.
You looked
said
at the
8.
number.
We said 8.
I think
It's
you
like-
saw 8, and now you're
it's
giving
going back
away
to
all
that
our
article
secrets.
said 8 before. That's all I'm saying. 800
All right,
and then
800.
800.
the mandatory thing is good. I think it goes back to your article. I was just gonna say that, you know, every once in a while it was good to like think about the workout, work really hard. Then we got really efficient, and people stopped working out as hard because they want to be really efficient. Now it's a chance to like blend the two again.
Yeah.
Let's see it. See what you got.
And again, there's multiple rounds of this, so I don't
100
set
rounds.
anything up so that you can't
You
complete
gotta
the
lose
first round.
yourself in the moment. You know.
Yeah.
All right.
Moving on.
Good.
Yeah, intervals done. Bitch work, real simple. We're gonna fly through this. We're going to have a day of bike or rowing sprints, which is typically assault bike rowing more often than not, and then rower. We're going to have running specific intervals, so short to mid distance.
Assault rowing?
Is that what I said?
I think so.
Assault
That's
bike /
slash.
rowing.
What you meant.
Yeah. One of the days will be ski erg or C2 bike. Again, we really want you guys to get on that C2 bike and learn how to cycle things faster. And then the long day, we're going to have long runs again. You will not escape that. We will not allow it. So you're going to be running long again. And the extras this cycle, you could see things like strict pulling from pegboard work, legless rope climb, strict muscle ups. We'll have a day dedicated to variations of handstand push-up work. So if those still need work in some form or capacity, you're going to find at least one piece that hits what it is that you need to work on. We'll have some extra strength work in on one of the days with lunge or bench press. And swimming is back, non-mandatory, and there's a little note in there. You can do it as a Saturday training piece, or I have no issue with you doing it on a Sunday rest day as a recovery, active rest movement
/
piece,
skill,
whatever. Yeah, I don't think swimming is going to negatively affect your recovery in any way, shape, or form, especially with the volume that's prescribed. So if anything, it may help, and that's your conditioning.
The day 5, I'm not sure that this happens every single week, but it looks like it might. The day 5, you've got essentially a pick 2 out of an interval, going long, and swimming.
Correct.
And I can say right now that if an athlete is trying to be in the elite for sanctionals, they better be fucking throwing that interval away and figuring out how to go long. I'm just saying,
true.
like it makes total sense to me that if you are maybe a step below that, or your goals are different, that taking that interval and getting that piece done and getting, your intensity in and staying in that lane is perfectly fine. But if you see things like, 10K run or row for however long, and you are trying to get somewhere, but you were unwilling to do that, it just
I agree.
It just doesn't make
Prepare
any
to fail.
sense.
I agree with you totally. And that day 5 is interesting because it actually, I made sure it worked for both ends of the spectrum. So
Right.
the day 5 interval is strongman work. It's odd object strongman stuff. So if you already have that swimmer's background or runner's background, you need to throw away one of those two that you already know you're going to finish in the top 10% of that style of workout. And you need to get that strongman stuff in there. But I think you're right that more people fall in the need to build that base of endurance, especially with something like swimming, and especially with something like a 6-mile run.
The people who that message is for know who they know.
Yeah. Where it's more fun to do handstand walking and yoke walking, and they're going to skip their 10K run because it's just it's too cold, or I don't have the time, or whatever. Just plan on finishing at the bottom of the pack then.
Correct.
Hunter, you should do the yoke.
Yeah, I mean, if we're picking pieces. Right.
Listen, guys.
That's true.
Helping you out. Remote coach.
That's true. The yoke is for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that is cycle 3 in a nutshell. Oh, one last note. Bringing back the floss every day. Flossing every day.
It amazes me how many athletes I see who do not either know how to floss or have never done it to
weird,
begin
right?
with. It's
We
insane.
go to camp and do the same thing.
Even high-level athletes
Yeah,
are like,
that's what I mean.
flossing, I've seen it before. It's like, what?
Yeah, like, what is that? Like,
I don't think I'd be alive right now if it was for floss. I think I'd be broken
For real.
in a pile somewhere.
You just assume you're hurt every day when you come into the gym. Like,
If you are a newbie to
floss.
flossing, I have chosen areas you should floss based on the day's work in the warm-up. But if you have areas that you would rather add to or do instead, then you can take it into your own hands.
There's also a library of how to floss in our YouTube channel. We did a video, Austin and I, of how to floss certain areas, and I'm pretty sure that every single area that's touched in here is a video. We have a video for it. So
Okay.
is it appropriate for all ages?
We'll post that up, whether it's appropriate or
I gotta
not.
think about
sure,
it. I'm not
touching you with your floss.
Bad touch.
We'll post it up to remind everybody. But, I mean, we're coming on cycle 3, which means you guys have been training for coming up on 4 months straight almost of training. It's time to make sure that you're doing the things you need to do to be able to continue this output through this cycle, and then cycle 4, which will inevitably take us straight into the open. It'll be here just like that. So if you're not
Here already.
if you're not taking care of yourself, it will catch up with you. It's that simple.
And just like the higher volume as far as repetitions go, nature of cycle 3 makes that like twice as important, at least.
I don't disagree. That's it. Anyone want to throw anything else out there?
I do want to talk masters real quick.
Okay. They are very
Tell us.
important. So tell us all about them.
Yep. So I'll just kind of if anything that I don't hit, and kind of assume it's follows basically along the same lines as the blog. But the strength, we'll be doing the 5x5 back squat as well. 5 rep max once a week, and then instead of 5x5 every single week, it'll be going down from 5x5 to 5x4 to 5x3, just as a way to moderate that volume a little bit. Intensity will still be at that 90% range. You'll still have the opportunity to add 5 to 10 pounds to your back squat every week, but the volume will slowly decrease throughout the cycle.
So you'll do the same number of sets, but the number of reps week
Correct.
to week will drop
That
by
is actually
1%.
backwards.
I was just tell you
That's
backwards.
why.
Oh, did I put
yeah,
it backwards?
That's why
Okay.
I'm asking.
We're staying with fives.
Sorry, yeah, fives, and then
Staying
correct.
with fives,
Yep.
just making sure that as that weight goes up and up and up, that we can keep the volume,
Right.
that
So
total
the fourth and
product.
fifth set doesn't
Right.
start crushing you.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes sense. Yep.
Yep.
Got it.
Nope, I have that written down too. I just read it.
Choose
backwards.
your own
Yeah,
adventure.
sorry. Yeah, it's choose your own adventure. The Olympic weightlifting will be alternating between power clean, power snatch, and then squat clean, squat snatch, basically going from week to week. There will be that 1 day a week where we have the active rest in there, whether it's a bike erg, a run, something like that, but there will be that active rest component in there as well.
They do not get to
Metcons-
skip out on those complexes, though.
No, we do have the complexes.
We would never let that happen.
No, the clean
They're too fun.
complex
They're
is slightly different than
What?
the Misfit clean complex, but it's a complex. It's not going to be pleasant. You're going to get stronger by doing it anyway. So that's what I'll say on that. Metcons, I'm not going to really add anything to that. Just starting to blend elements together from cycle 2 into cycle 3. Intervals will be mandatory every day, rotating through some different styles, some with kind of the max rep at the end, varying up the work to rest ratios, but nothing too crazy in there.
So I'm just going to keep going with details here. Just every day that they're programmed, they're mandatory.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Because they're not in 5 days a week.
Correct.
Just so people aren't
Yeah.
panicking right now. There is Metcon or interval 5 days a week, and it's always mandatory. So you have that conditioning always mandatory.
Correct.
Okay. We'll get an email from like some master being like, "You fucking lied. You lied to me.
Never trust
How
you again.
dare you?
How could you do that to me, Hunter?" Now we know.
Gabe.
He's going to be the guy that emails us.
Email Gabe. And then the 3 days a week mandatory accessory work, and that accessory work is either active or passive.
2 days a week.
Mobility. Is it? Yeah.
This
No.
is fun.
I got 3.
Oh, snap.
And then 3.
That's
1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Okay. Anyways, keep going.
Some days you'll
Active.
do stuff that's mandatory. Some days you won't.
active,
They'll figure it out.
active and passive mobility. So that's just a little bit different. It's not asking you to add volume to your training day, but actually mandating you to get yourself into some positions to stay mobile throughout the entire cycle.
That's interesting. I actually wish I could do something like that in the blog without just having like mutiny or everyone skip it or something. So I'm interested to see how the masters
Yeah,
respond
well, people
to this.
say that's the thing. Like, if you guys don't write it down, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we arrived at,
It's true.
all the warm-ups and, the warm-up mobility and all that. So,
Because I like that. I'm just looking at it. I hadn't looked at this yet, and I'm looking at it real quick, and I actually like putting people through real simple stuff, but real effective stuff, and making it part of the daily training so you just don't skip it. Write it down. It's built in.
you know you're going to go into that couch stretch and there's going to be no clock and it's going to be
Right.
like, that's probably been 12 minutes. It's been, yeah, 12 seconds. I'm out.
Or you're on your Instagram in your couch stretch. Yeah. Okay.
Did we do it?
That's what
Yep.
we got.
Yep.
That's
Okay.
what we got. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That's all. Okay. Well, I will say this. I'll leave you with this note. I know we've got a lot of questions about how are things going to change once this opens over. The one little tidbit I can give everybody, we've probably hit on it before, but just a reminder, if you hadn't watched the last video we did when we were at the camp, we will have competition track specific programming that starts basically around probably around April once the Open wraps up in 2019. And this will be somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks, either depending on the comp or depending on how we want to ramp you up and then kind of taper you off for competition. And it will be available to you to kind of take a secondary path off the blog onto this as you know your competition is coming up. So you can plan for something more specific, kind of like doing regionals prep at different points of the year. That is going to be a big change for us. It is going to be a really positive thing for everybody to be able to prepare for their competition. And then when that's over, they can kick it back to the normal like season-long training, which will prepare you again for the Open, which will be in a different time of year. But you'll have multiple roads you can take. And I think that'll be game-changing for us. So
Absolutely.
it's going to be cool. So we'll give you more details as that starts to come out, and we'll see you guys next time.